Good morning, you're watching A News. I'm Dilek Tuna. Here are the headlines. The Israeli Security Cabinet has approved a new military plan to take control of Gaza City. Ukraine and Russia continue to trade strikes ahead of the expected meeting between Trump and Putin. President of Azerbaijan, Ilham Aliyev, meets US Special Envoy Steve Witkoff in the United States. The Israeli Security Cabinet has approved a new military plan to take control of Gaza City amid growing pressure over the war and its humanitarian impact. The move follows Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's comments signalling plans to expand operations across the Gaza Strip.
Israel is set to take control of Gaza City after its Security Cabinet approved a new plan in the early hours of Friday, a significant escalation in its nearly two-year war with Hamas. The move comes just hours after Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said that Israel intended to take full military control of the Strip, but not govern it.
We intend to, in order to assure our security, remove Hamas there, enable the population to be free of Gaza, and to pass it to civilian governance. That is not Hamas and not anyone advocating the destruction of Israel.
Israeli troops will prepare for a new ground offensive in Gaza's north while issuing evacuation warnings to civilians to move. Netanyahu's office says aid will be provided to those outside combat zones, but aid groups warn conditions are already catastrophic and options for safe displacement are few. A full takeover would reverse Ariel Sharon's 2005 withdrawal of the territory and signal a dramatic new phase of the war.
Netanyahu's decision to occupy Gaza, it's like there's nothing left to occupy in the first place. We're already dying, 100,000 deaths every day. Around 100 to 150 people die daily from starvation, on top of everything else we're going through. Practically, all of Gaza has been squeezed into the western part of Gaza City, and that's all that's left.
Meanwhile, humanitarian agencies warn that Gaza is on the brink of starvation. According to the United Nations Human Rights Agency, 500,000 people are facing famine. But with 75% of the territory now under Israeli control and Hamas clinging to fragmented pockets, the battle for the Strip is no longer just about military control. It's about preventing human suffering.
Tensions flared in Israel on Thursday as thousands took to the streets demanding the release of hostages held by Hamas in Gaza. In Tel Aviv, protests turned violent, with police using water cannons to break up the crowds.
In Tel Aviv, Israeli police and demonstrators clashed as officers tried to disperse crowds using water cannons on Thursday. Protesters lit flares, chanted slogans, and held banners bearing the faces of those still in captivity. Demonstrators also gathered outside Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's Likud party headquarters, urging him to prioritize negotiations. Thousands of people rallied nationwide in Israel, including Tel Aviv, Jerusalem, Haifa and the Negev, demanding the immediate release of hostages held by Hamas in Gaza and an end to the war. In Jerusalem, families of hostages staged a protest outside government headquarters, coinciding with a ministerial meeting on Netanyahu's plan for the full takeover of Gaza City. The protests come amid mounting public pressure on the government to strike a deal with Hamas. According to Israeli officials, 50 hostages remain in Gaza, with 20 believed to be alive. The Gaza war erupted on the 7th of October in 2023, when Hamas killed 1,200 people and took 251 hostages in a cross-border attack, according to Israeli figures. Since then, Israel's offensive has killed more than 60,000 Palestinians, according to Gaza health authorities.
Russia says it has hit a key railway hub in central Ukraine, while Kyiv reports drone strikes on Russian targets, including in Crimea. This comes as the Kremlin confirms President Vladimir Putin will meet Donald Trump in the coming days, with the US president pushing for a breakthrough to end the war.
Fighting between Russia and Ukraine continues despite potential talks between both presidents together with the US president. During the last 24 hours, Russia claims that its forces have damaged a key railway hub in Ukraine's central Dnipropetrovsk region, saying that the station was used by Ukrainian forces to transport weapons and military equipment to the Donbas region. Meanwhile, Ukraine reports hitting several Russian targets, including landing craft and radar systems, using combat drones. Kyiv officials say that in Crimea, its drones also struck Russian air defense facilities. However, on Thursday, the Kremlin confirmed that Russian President Vladimir Putin and US Donald Trump will meet in the coming days, as the US president seeks a breakthrough to end the Ukraine war after voicing mounting frustration with his Russian counterpart and threatening new sanctions. Ahead of the peace talks, Putin says the country has many friends willing to help organize the meeting, including with United Arab Emirates President Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, whom he met in the Kremlin on Thursday. Trump says that Putin doesn't have to agree to meet with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. Meanwhile, Zelensky confirmed that Kyiv and its partner share a clear, common position that the war must end, after confirming the phone call that he had with President Trump earlier this week. The announcement for the talks comes a day after Trump's special envoy, Steve Witkoff, held 3 hours of talks with Putin in Moscow earlier this week. Previously, Trump has threatened sanctions against Russia and against countries that buy its exports starting Friday, unless Putin agrees to end the conflict in Ukraine.
Previously, we spoke with Daniela Mello, political scientist, regarding the possible upcoming Trump-Putin talks. Daniela shared her insights and told us what we might expect from this meeting.
What one hopes would come out of a summit is a concrete plan, perhaps even a roadmap for peace, long-lasting peace in Ukraine. Right now, there doesn't seem to be any true indication that such is what will occur. And in fact, most indications seem to be that we may have a repeat of the type of summit that President Trump held in 2018 in Helsinki with Mr. Putin, in which not a great deal of advances were made. Having said that, again, every time that leaders meet, this is an opportunity for there to be conversations, dialogue, step forth. And if there's one difference here, it's certainly the apparent willingness of the United States to not completely exclude Mr. Zelensky and the European allies from these conversations. That being the case, and if that materializes, that would definitely be a step forward in this process. At the same time, the most likely scenario, certainly according to many other analysts, but given the pattern that we have seen, the pattern of interaction between Mr. Putin and Mr. Trump, the most likely situation that we have here is a diplomatic attempt, a diplomatic maneuver by President Putin to try to win some time and to a certain extent, to appease Mr. Trump ahead of this, or moving towards this deadline for sanctions. So even though the President of the United States has made many even incendiary accusations towards Mr. Putin over the past few weeks, calling him crazy, for instance, one of those coming to mind, it has been mostly bluster. We have seen actually very little direct pressure on Russia beyond just a battle of words.
Cambodia and Thailand's top defence officials agreed to let ASEAN observers inspect the disputed border areas on Thursday. This is to help ensure that fighting does not start again after a 5-day conflict that ended with at least 43 deaths and a temporary ceasefire in late July. The leaders only agreed to negotiate after US President Donald Trump warned that tariff talks would be paused unless peace was restored. On Thursday, Cambodian Defence Minister and Thailand's Acting Defence Minister met in Kuala Lumpur to discuss a permanent ceasefire. The two countries have long disputed parts of their 817-kilometre land border, which was originally mapped out by France in 1907 during its colonial rule. Shenzhen is today one of China's leading centres for finance, technology and global trade. As part of the Middle Corridor, it plays a growing role in linking China with Central Asia, the South Caucasus and Europe. Our Anastasia Lavrina reports on the city's strategic importance in shaping Eurasian commerce.
Hello, welcome to Shenzhen, a city that in just 40 years has transformed from a small fishing village into a major financial and technology center. Today it stands as a symbol of China's economic progress and plays one of the key roles in the Middle Corridor, the new generation Eurasian trade route connecting China to Central Asia, South Caucasus to Europe. Shenzhen is leading in innovation. It's also home to the headquarters of some of China's most influential companies, including Huawei, a global leader in telecommunications and digital solutions. Also for BYD, a pioneer in electric mobility and renewable energy technologies. In the lead-up to COP29 held in Azerbaijan last year, BYD delivered a fleet of electric buses to support sustainable urban transport in Baku, further strengthening the technological and environmental ties between the two countries, between China and Azerbaijan. Nearby is Yantian Port, one of the busiest container ports in the world. In 2024, it handled over 15 million shipping containers. That is standard size used worldwide to measure cargo. Many of these containers travel along the Middle Corridor, highlighting Shenzhen's strategic role in connecting China to Europe and Asia. Trade along the Middle Corridor is growing rapidly. In 2024, over 4 million tons of goods were transformed along the route, a significant increase from previous years. This growth is supported by infrastructure developments in countries like Azerbaijan, which is enhancing its rail and port facilities to accommodate the rising trade volumes. Azerbaijan's strategic position in the Middle Corridor is gaining international attention. In July 2025, Azerbaijan and China signed a memorandum of understanding to boost transit cooperation along the Middle Corridor. This agreement includes expanding transit operations, digitalizing infrastructure, and increasing cargo flow, underscoring the corridor's growing importance in global trade networks. So Shenzhen is not just a growing city, it's shaping the future of trade and cooperation between East and West, building new connections across continents. Anastasia Lavrina from China, especially for A News.
On Thursday, President of Azerbaijan Ilham Aliyev met with US President Special Envoy Steve Witkoff in Washington during his working visit to the United States. A memorandum of cooperation was signed between Azerbaijan's state oil company Sokar and ExxonMobil with the participation of President Aliyev and Steve Witkoff. The document was signed by the Minister of Economy of Azerbaijan, Mikhail Jabarov, and Vice President of ExxonMobil, John Ardil. After that, President Ilham Aliyev met with US President's Special Envoy. US President Donald Trump has announced that he will host the President of Azerbaijan, Ilham Aliyev, and the Prime Minister of Armenia, Nikol Pashinyan, at the White House today for what he called a historic peace summit. In a post shared on his Truth Social account in the early hours of Friday morning, Trump said both leaders would join him for an official peace signing ceremony, marking what could be a major diplomatic breakthrough in Azerbaijan-Armenia normalization process. He wrote, "These two nations have been at war for many years, resulting in the deaths of thousands of people. Many leaders have tried to end the war with no success until now, thanks to Trump." Trump claimed that his administration has been engaged in behind-the-scenes diplomacy with both sides for quite some time, leading to the upcoming agreement. In addition to the peace deal, Trump said the United States will also sign bilateral agreements with both countries to enhance economic cooperation. The United States will also sign bilateral agreements with both countries to pursue economic opportunities together so we can fully unlock the potential of the South Caucasus region, he stated. Turkish Foreign Minister of Turkey Hakan Fidan visited Syria on Thursday and met with President Ahmed al-Shara and Foreign Minister Assad al-Shaibani. The visit focused on boosting ties and cooperation 8 months after the fall of the Assad regime. Both sides discussed strengthening collaboration across various fields. According to sources, priority for Turkey is to seize these opportunities in line with the shared interests of both countries and in a way that supports Syria's stability and security. Turkey reaffirmed its support for Syria's stability and pledged continued high-level engagement. Turkey and Syria have signed a landmark agreement to establish a joint business council aiming to restore institutional ties after years of fractured relations.
Turkey and Syria have signed a landmark agreement to establish a joint business council aiming to restore institutional ties after years of fractured relations. The Memorandum of Understanding was signed on Wednesday during a roundtable in Ankara chaired by Syrian Economy and Industry Minister Nidal Al-Shar and Turkey's Deputy Trade Minister Özgür Volkan Ağar, with participation from business leaders under the Foreign Economic Relations Board. The talks focused heavily on opportunities in Syria's post-war reconstruction, with special emphasis on build, operate, transfer, and public-private partnership models that could follow Turkish firms to play a leading role in rebuilding critical infrastructure. In total, 9 additional Memorandum of Understanding agreements were signed between Turkish and Syrian civil society organizations, laying the groundwork for long-term cooperation across trade, investment, and industry. Turkey's Trade Ministry calls for the reopening of the communication channels between the private sectors and deepening economic ties in a structured, sustainable way. While diplomatic relations between Ankara and Damascus remain sensitive, this economic step marks a strategic re-engagement with the potential to grow if stability and trust can be built over time. Frey News, this is Aliya Aziz, Istanbul, Turkey.
Caspian countries are joining efforts to save the Caspian Sea. At a meeting in Awaza held during the UN Conference on Landlocked Developing Countries, Deputy Prime Ministers from the 5 coastal states voiced concerns about changes in the sea's ecosystem. They warned that falling water levels are affecting the social and economic life of coastal areas and called for urgent and coordinated action. Our correspondent Fariza Kalimruzina reports from Aktau, where the impact of the crisis is clearly visible.
Kazakhstan has the longest stretch of Caspian coastline, almost a third of the entire shore. We are in Aktau, the regional capital of Mangistau, where the scale of the sea's retreat is hard to ignore. Huge areas that were once underwater are now completely dry. And according to the National Hydrometeorology Service, the Caspian's current water level is minus 29 meters, based on the Baltic Height system. The shallow northern part of the sea, shared by Kazakhstan and Russia, is suffering the most. A drop like this has not been seen since 1977. And in the last 15 years, the water surface in Kazakhstan's part of the Caspian has shrunk by more than 7%. Marine life is also at risk. Sturgeon numbers have plummeted by 90% over the past 40 years. The causes are complex, but scientists point to several key drivers: rising greenhouse gas emissions, higher air temperatures, and faster water loss from both the sea itself and the rivers that flow into it. This is made worse by increasing demand for water in farming, industry and city infrastructure, which puts even more pressure on river systems. About 130 rivers flow into the Caspian, but the Volga plays the biggest role. It provides over 80% of the sea's annual inflow, around 270 to 300 billion cubic meters of water. But decades of industrial development and water infrastructure projects along the Volga may have reduced the amount of water that actually reaches the sea. Environmental experts are calling for a joint review of the Caspian's water balance and for long-term cooperation between all the countries that share this sea. Because the Volga flows through Russian territory and the Caspian is a shared basin, scientists say active international cooperation is essential, not only at a technical level, but through political dialogue as well. As concerns grow, international organizations have joined the Save the Caspian Sea movement. It was launched by Kazakh ecologist and legal expert Vadim Ni. We met him in Almaty before traveling to Aktau, and here is what he told us.
The current trend will continue, then we can lose almost 80% of habitats for Caspian seals, for sturgeon fish in this century. It's a very likely scenario for Kazakhstan, because we are planning the dredging works in the seaports and also on the Caspian Sea to enable more transportation of cargoes on the Caspian Sea, but also we are increasing the oil deposit exploitation on Kashagan. That will lead to the doubling, the tripling the pollution of the Caspian Sea, which is already very high.
Falling water levels threaten the entire region, but the experts warn that Kazakhstan could be affected the most. Some are already comparing the situation to the Aral Sea crisis, where years of environmental decline caused major damage to nature and human health. Many also question the effectiveness of the Tehran Convention, signed in the early 2000s. Most of its decisions have not been put into action. And just recently, President Tokayev brought up the Caspian issue again during a speech at the United Nations Regional Center in Almaty. It was another call from Kazakhstan to the global community, urging the world to help protect the largest enclosed body of water on the planet before the damage becomes irreversible. From Aktau, Kazakhstan, Fariza Kalimurzina, A News.
That's all from Baku for now. Stay tuned to A News for more updates and have a wonderful morning.